Oh, what is up, YouTube? We're back at another video again. I'm just playing. Yeah, I haven't made a video in a couple weeks. I'll admit that. But anyway, we're getting right back into try not to get scared challenges. Yeah, I'm gonna be trying not to get scared from these scary ass videos right here. Anyway, we're gonna be trying out this true scary stories from Reddit, I guess. So yeah.
The following are true scary stories found on the subreddit Let's Not Meet. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends.
Alright.
Let's begin. It was the summer before my senior year in college. My little brother, always being interested in military stuff, had gotten a pair of night vision goggles for his birthday, and he left them at my apartment. One night I was bored and decided to go try out the goggles at a wooded hiking area / nature preserve nearby. In retrospect, this seems like a very stupid idea, since I was all by myself, and female. But I was young and stupid, and got myself all excited at the possibility of seeing deer and other woodland creatures in their natural nighttime habitat. I was familiar with these woods. My best friend and I had hiked in there at night before, and we'd never run into anyone else. Our area is mostly rural and pretty safe, so I didn't anticipate any trouble. I parked in the little sparsely lit parking area, ignored the sign that said park closes at 10, and entered the woods, night vision goggles in hand.
Fuck that. Why the fuck, if you're a female, especially a female, is fucking at night and you enter the woods by your fucking self? Yeah, you just basically got yourself into this shit.
It was a half moon that night, and that was the only light that filtered down through the canopy of trees. It was pretty dark, and I didn't want to put on the goggles until I had found a place to sit down, so I lit my way with my mini mag light on my keychain. A couple of times I thought I heard a little rustling in the woods a fair distance away, but it was nothing out of the ordinary, and I put it down to the animal activity, hopefully the deer I'd been hoping to see. After I'd hiked a fair distance, I found a fallen log to sit on and put on the goggles. I don't know if you've ever used night vision goggles before, but the effect is impressive. They can turn near pitch darkness into bright as day. Everything appears in shades of green, but quite bright and clear. For a while, I had a blast looking around from my fallen log vantage point. Some chipmunks played around in the leaves nearby. A big owl blinked its lamp-like eyes at me from a tree branch. No deer though, and I started to think that maybe they wouldn't be likely to come anywhere near me, darkness or no, if I sat right in the open on a log. So I decided to find a place where I could be a little more hidden. I made my way a little deeper into the woods, and found a huge tree, perfect for climbing. I've always loved climbing trees, so it was nothing for me to hoist myself up a few branches and settle in to wait for my deer. I didn't get to see any. What I did see, lit up in bright night vision green, almost 10 minutes after waiting, was a man, dressed head to toe in dark clothing, making his way stealthily through the woods. He was coming from the same direction I'd come, and was clearly staying hidden, moving from tree to tree and glancing around carefully before moving on again. It looked very much like he was looking for someone. It took me a few moments to notice that he was carrying something, and when I saw it, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. He had a knife, a big one, and he was gripping it as if he expected to use it in the very near future. It wasn't deer hunting season, and this was a nature preserve, where hunting of any kind is prohibited. And at any rate, the guy was alone and not dressed as a hunter. There were no deer in sight, and very few hunters kill their prey with knives. I was suddenly horribly aware of my situation.
Hold on. Get the f out of there right that moment. Obviously he's about to, find someone. Well, make sure that ain't you, so get the fuck out of there. Why the hell are you still staying there? What the hell? If you ever get caught in this situation and you ever try to stay there and hide or something like that, or fight them off, unless you have like weapons or you're trained, I would just get the fuck out of there. But alright.
A young woman alone, helpless, in the middle of the woods at night. This was the 90s, so no cell phones, and even if I'd had one, I wouldn't have felt safe using it lest I draw his attention. I don't know how he was able to see so well in the dark. I guess his eyes adjusted, and I was terrified he would look up and see me. I sat there, afraid to move, afraid to breathe, and watched him as he continued his methodical and stealthy process of scanning the forest for who or whatever the hell he was stalking. I scanned around, but couldn't see anyone else, even from my high vantage point, and the sickening thought struck me that he might be looking for me. I remembered the rustling noises I'd heard in the woods when I first arrived, and then I thought back further and remembered something else. A white car had followed too close behind me for most of my drive to the nature preserve. I'd been annoyed and a little freaked out at the time, but when I turned into the nature preserve parking area, the white car had just passed me and driven on its way, and I hadn't thought anything of it. Now I wondered, horrified, if this was the driver of that car. If he'd circled back and seen my car, parked alone in that lot. If he'd come in after me. I sat, paralyzed with fear, and watched the man for what felt like forever, but was probably another half hour or so. There was a heart-stopping moment when he paused right underneath my tree, and I was sure he was going to look up and find me. After a while, he seemed to give up on whatever plan he had in mind. I heard him say, "Fuck it," and he started heading back in the direction he'd come, the direction of the parking area. I stayed in the tree, wet with sweat and crying, until the sun came up a few hours later. Then I climbed down, still terrified, gripping the little can of pepper spray on my keychain. I made my way as fast as I could to the parking lot. The man had been there. My windshield had been smashed with a rock, and someone had scraped all down the sides of my car with something sharp, presumably a giant knife that I'm lucky didn't end up in my chest. Thank God for the night vision goggles that let me see him before he could see me, and thank God for big trees with sturdy branches. I did call the police once I got back home. 2 very nice cops came to my apartment and took a report, and that was unfortunately the last I had ever heard of it.
This guy just say, did she just say unfortunately? Well, at least you didn't fucking meet up with him again. What the hell? You wanna fucking have a showdown with him? What the hell? What do you mean unfortunately? You're fucking lucky you got out of there. Like, why would you hide on top of it? In tree branches up above. Like, you could make some noise very easily. But anyway, alright, let's get on with this. That one was pretty short, but alright.
I live alone out in the country with my 2 Caucasian shepherds. Caucasian shepherds are notoriously known as the best guard dog breed in the world. And when you live out in the country where the nearest neighbor is miles away, they are your best security system. One evening it was around 11, and Danzig and Ripley were monitoring the house.
Actually, I think your best security system is a gun, not a dog. Well, a dog could help you probably, but alright.
I was watching an older slasher flick that was on some channel I had never heard of. I began to feel pretty tired and decided to head to bed. Suddenly, I was woken up by Danzig and Ripley barking uncontrollably. I looked at the clock on my nightstand, 3:34 in the morning. I walked into the living room where Danzig and Ripley were still barking. They were facing the front door, and I decided to open it. Most of the time they had woken me with their howls, it was because there was some sort of animal outside. Outside I saw nothing, just an empty field of grass. I sighed in an annoyed manner and marched back to the comforts of my bed. Danzig and Ripley were just now quietly growling. Whatever animal was out there, it wasn't out there anymore. The next morning I got up and put Danzig and Ripley on their leashes. We walked through the grassy field and into the woods. In the woods there's a large path next to a small creek. As I was walking, I saw a figure hidden amongst the trees. It had a human shape. I wondered if it was just a lost person searching for help. "Hello?" I called out. The figure didn't move. "Are you lost?" The thing began to move through the trees until it was about a couple feet away. I saw a heavily bearded man. He was wearing a baggy hoodie that had many holes. The hood concealed his eyes. I said once again in a more quiet way, "Are you lost?" The man spoke. "I'm fine." his voice raspy and showing that he had little teeth left, those that still remained yellow and cavity-filled. He remained standing there a couple feet away. I knew he wouldn't come close, not when there were two large growling dogs at my sides. The man was creepy, but I wasn't intimidated or anxious. I said bye and continued on my walk. By the time I returned to the spot I had spoken to the man, he was nowhere in sight. I didn't think much of it and returned home. I stayed there until night playing Killing Floor on my PC. I eventually grew tired and went to bed again. Again, I woke up to the sounds of my dogs barking at the door. I walked into the living room and opened the door. As soon as I opened it, I saw a piece of paper on the ground. It was folded in half and I could barely see text through it. I picked it up and opened it. It was written in red ink and read, "I like your house." I immediately thought, "What the fuck?" and closed the door. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I took Danzig and Ripley on their usual walk. I didn't spot the creep and thought nothing of it. When I returned to my house, a window had been broken. I rushed into my house with my dogs who were starting to go crazy. They started barking at the closet in the hallway where I kept my supplies. I opened it, and there stood the hooded man, hunched over holding a kitchen knife. Before he could even move, my dogs pounced on him. He dropped the knife and was now laying on the floor where my dogs were holding him down. I contacted the authorities and the man was arrested. It turns out the man was an ex-convict who had been in jail for heroin possession. He was sent to prison, but I still haven't completely gotten over it. Every time my dogs bark, my heart drops.
Man. Whew, if it wasn't for those dogs, man, you might have been screwed there. Might have been screwed, but I've heard stories where people have gotten out of that shit, but fuck that, man. I wouldn't be able to sleep either, or at least for a while, if that happened to my fucking house. Hell no. Fuck that. What kind of creepy fucking bastard does that type of shit? Breaks in your fucking window, holding a fucking knife. Fucking crazy son of a bitch. I mean, he was an ex-convict, probably a drug addict, like you said. Anyway, let's get into it, alright?
I live in the south of the U.S., and what I mean by south, I mean redneck territory. If you've ever heard of the food liver mush, then you'll get a specific picture of the area I live in. If you've never heard of it, then don't worry. The food is mainly in the south, kind of like grits. My mom works in a doctor's office dealing with medical records in another county. Sometimes I go to her office and sit with her if I have a doctor's appointment, or go to work with her when I'm wanting to meet up with friends who live in that county and hang out at their place. Around 4 years ago, my friend, Betsy, who lives in the county my mom works in, asked me to hang out. I rode with my mom to work to wait on my friend and sit with my mom until then. I decided to go outside for some fresh air and to walk around a little bit, when a red truck pulls up and stops in front of me. I thought maybe he wanted directions, as often people do in the county, so I walked up a little bit, not too close, to the passenger window and asked him what he needed. As I'm walking up to the passenger window, I take in the physical characteristics of the man in the driver's seat. He looked to be in his 50s, short white hair, scruffy beard, and a beer gut. He looked normal enough for the men around his age that lived in the area, so I didn't really think much of it. Before I can ask him what he needs, he asks me if I need a ride. After telling him no, that I'm waiting on a friend to come pick me up, he proceeds to tell me that he can take me anywhere if I need it. I back up a little, look at my phone as if I just got a text message, and tell him that that was my friend and they'll be here in a few minutes. About 5 minutes later, as I'm trying to calm myself down, he pulls back up. He then tells me that he has a job for me, and it pays a lot of money. He said that I look to be old enough for the job.
Fuck that. Fuck that shit. Yeah, fuck that. You better decline his ass again. Fuck that creepy shit. You know that. He's gonna fucking kidnap you or some shit.
And I can use the money to buy clothes and makeup and other teenage girl things. I tell him no thanks, and practically run back into the building. I look out the window, and the red truck is still there. I run to the back of the office and tell my mom everything that happened. She follows me to the window so I can show her the truck, but it has already sped off. By this time, her coworkers are calling the police and asking me for the details of the truck and the man driving it. As I'm giving the details, I see my friend pull up in the parking lot. I go out and meet her and tell her what happened. As we're leaving, I spot the red truck. I tell her that's the truck, and she speeds up to pass it. The next day, I hear that the police caught the guy. Turns out he was a wanted sex offender and has many accounts of molesting and raping young girls, including his nieces. I'm thankful that I was smart enough not to get in the truck with him, because who knows what would have happened to me.
My god, what the fuck? Gosh, bruh. Shit.
If you enjoyed this video,
Yeah, what the fuck? His own nieces? What kind of fucking person are you? Fucking animal, Jesus. Anyway, guys, yeah. It wasn't that scary. Or, it was kind of creepy a little bit, but I've seen way worse than that. Fuck. I've seen way worse than that shit, so. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video. I might be doing a try not to get scared challenge pretty soon. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.